Prayer, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, once again, we're honored and privileged to be in this setting tonight. Lord, we thank you for our members. We thank you for our leadership. We thank you for our students. Thank you for the parents. Thank you for the community you've blessed us with. And Lord, we want to be honorable to you. We want to be in your will, and we want to be doing what we would need to be doing, God, to be pleasing to you and do things right. Lord, we ask that you would guide us, lead us, and direct us into all truths, and God, that we would have you as the focal point of the matter at hand. And Lord, we ask you that you would continue to be with each parent, with each student, with each community member, and Lord, with our faculty and staff, and that you'd continue to be with this board. And we ask you to be with us tonight, meet with us in a mighty way, and that we'd give you all the glory and honor for everything that's done. We ask all these things in your precious holy name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, I'll call the meeting to order. And I might make a point. We have a fifth board member here that's been out of town for about 5 straight days, and I have a trip already planned to be out of town, and I don't know when he's coming back. Sometime later this week, I think. So he never misses, so he could not be here tonight. Mr. Sale, do you have any additions to the agenda?
We're going to add some additional shout-outs in just a few minutes. And so when we come down to the SRO recognition, if you all would just pencil in shout-outs, okay? The other things that we're going to add is over on the second page of the confidential agenda, we need to add an action item D. I'm going to ask for you to seriously consider approving the East and Middle School improvement plans. Technically, we had thought about waiting until December for that, but there is a 30-day deadline that we need to look at, and we would miss that deadline. And so if you are comfortable with that tonight, we could vote on those. If you choose to not approve them because you have additional recommendations that you want to make for those, and you have that privilege, then we will need to call a brief meeting at the end of November of some point in order to approve these, or in very early December. I would recommend late November on that. I really believe that once you hear what these staff members are going to tell you, that you'll be willing to approve those. Then we need to add an element E. I want to talk about an early dismissal day with you to add to the calendar. Okay? Did you get all of that? That was a lot, I'm sorry.
Any questions? All right, all those approve the changes in the agenda and the regular agenda, show by right hand, please. That's approved. All right, let's go with the highlight of the evening, character awards.
Mr. Burrell, if you would come and you would introduce our character awards for this month, and I believe we have some from last month as well.
Yeah, if you remember from last month, we had pre-K and East that had a September character award winner. So the other schools will be doubling up tonight. So that's why we've got a lot of folks here. And we would ask that when you present, if you would stand on this side so you can both be seen by the board and by our camera, and folks at home, that would be great. We'd really appreciate that. So without any further ado, Bright Adventures.
This is my friend, Miss Paisley Strickland, and I'm Miss Jennifer Scheid. I'm a teacher at Bright Adventures Pre-K. Now, Paisley got the award this month because she's our silent leader in our classroom. She is very good at just knowing what needs to be done. She's a wonderful friend. She plays with everybody, never have a problem. She's always the first to go and help someone if they need help cleaning up centers. And she always tries very, very hard at everything she does in our classroom. So this is Miss Paisley Strickland.
Thank you. I want a high five. Thank you, Precious.
Next up, West. And remember, we've got 2 awards, one for September, one for October from West. Doesn't matter which one, whichever one of you wants to come first. There we go.
My name is Julia Burrows, and I teach 4th grade at West Elementary, and I'm so excited that I get to brag on Krupa Patel today. Krupa is quiet, kind, and hardworking. She really understands all the things that it takes to manage the day in our classroom, and I can always count on her to step up and take responsibility for helping. I'm so proud of you, Krupa. And this is you.
Hi, y'all. This is Delilah Sutton, and I wrote my little speech too. Delilah is an exceptional friend to everybody. She's hardworking. She demonstrates grit when things get challenging. She is an excellent example of a student who demonstrates all of our 7 habits. Our 5th grade team is very proud of her, and we are honored to teach such an outstanding young lady. My name is Miss Whiteside. I didn't say that to start with. I teach 5th grade. But Delilah is a very exceptional young lady. When we began this year, I let my students write down who they were comfortable sitting next to in my classroom, and almost everybody in my class wrote her name. So that says a lot for you.
East.
This is Miss Eliza Bradley, and Miss Thomas couldn't be here this evening, but she is her teacher, and she wrote a little note about her. She says, Eliza Bradley arrives to class every morning with the best attitude and smile. She keeps this positive attitude all day. Eliza has started basketball and is very excited about her season. She comes to school ready to learn. She enjoys being with her friends, and she is a leader in the classroom. Eliza is very polite and kind to students and adults at East. I am very proud of her, and I'm so happy to have her in my class this year. Love, Miss Thomas.
Next is the middle school. Again, we have 2, so either one of you, whichever group it is.
Hello, my name is Megan Lucas. I teach 6th grade at Swain Middle School, Social Studies. This is Harmony Franklin. I currently teach Harmony in class. Harmony treats every student with respect, and she's always willing to help fellow classmates. Harmony sometimes struggles where things come easy to some students. Harmony has to persevere in order to overcome those struggles, and she is an extremely hard worker. She also has a great work ethic, a good attitude, and she shows leadership qualities, and she always tries to go above and beyond for her fellow classmates. Thank you, Harmony.
I'm Janet Schuler, and I'm representing the 7th grade teachers because we all picked Abram Cochran here. Abram is kind to everyone he meets, and his sense of humor and joy make others happy. He works hard academically and is also helpful, taking upon himself to make sure chairs are put up on the desk at the end of the day and other small little things like that. Abram is the kind of honest leader others are thankful to have.
Take two.
High school, since we almost stole your certificates.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Angie Babb, and I am the art teacher at the high school, and it is my honor and pleasure to introduce you to two very fine young people. I've had the pleasure of teaching them both in my art classes. The first is Blake Swain, and I'm just going to share with you some of the words of affirmation that his teachers gave for me to share here. Starting with Coach Sherman Holt, who says that Blake is an exceptional example of character. He's very genuine and a leader. Anna Rowland says that Blake is always kind, jumps in when others do not, is always polite, speaks to staff and students, and cares about others. And when he's greeted or seen around campus, he always has a smile on his face and a kind word for others. Blake is the true meaning, she says, of our best and then some. Also, our school nurse, Samantha McFalls, says that Blake recently witnessed another student experiencing an injury and was very quick to jump in and help. He did all the right things and was really kind to the student as well. And last but not least, I'd like to add to that Blake is an example of the best kind of peer influence and natural leadership. When he's working in groups, the students around Blake sense his sincerity and integrity, and they're drawn to his kindness and warmth. And as a result, they rise to his level of maturity and are better students and citizens as a result. So congratulations, Blake. Okay, and our second recipient here is Bridget Wyatt, and Jessica Masters says about Bridget that she's always holding the door in the mornings at the parking lot entrance, and she's welcoming people in. I've seen her do that. She always makes everybody feel very welcome. Cameron Tuchenhagen says that Bridget's always such a bright light in her classroom. And Joanna McMahon adds to that I look forward to seeing her every morning. It's a great way to start my day, and I'm so blessed to have Bridget in my life. And I'd like to add that Bridget always seems to know when anybody, whether a student or staff, needs a smile, a word of encouragement, or a hug, and is quick to offer those. And she's also a ray of sunshine in the lives of everyone around her. So congratulations, Bridget. All right. And it would help if I gave you guys your awards, so here you go.
Now for parents and folks who just received those awards, if you'll hang on until we finish with these special recognitions, then you can leave if you'd like to. But I think, Mr. Sale, you've got some things that you want to share with me.
Many of you saw the WLOS special on P.D. Hampton from last week. Many of you have probably heard the story or seen on Facebook what P.D. did. For those of you who might not have been paying attention, last week we had a person who came through Swain County and decided to try to elude arrest for one reason or another. And ended up doing a U-turn out on Highway 19 and actually tried to take his truck into the bus entrance at West Elementary. There were several law enforcement officers who were involved in trying to slow him down and to stop him. P.D. Hampton, though, who was part of that chase, my understanding, had the foresight to realize that something might happen, and he stopped at the bus entrance at West Elementary. And when this person, who was running from the police, decided to try and go to the school, P.D. stopped him at risk to himself. He took his car and he physically stopped the truck, which probably weighed 50% more than his car. Now, P.D. was supposed to be here tonight, but P.D. decided that he wanted to go take care of his son in Atlanta. And I'm not sure if he really had to do that or not. But if you know P.D., he's not the kind of guy that wants to come and get accolades. P.D.'s words to us that day were, I was just doing my job. I was just doing my job. And perhaps he was. But Sheriff Cochran, I would like for us to honor you and your law enforcement with a standing ovation tonight for what you do for our school system and for P.D. I feel safe doing that because the election's over. Yeah, thank God you said that. Now, there's another incident that happened, I believe it was last Thursday, which was our Friday. It's the kind of thing that you don't ever want to happen on a school bus or anywhere else. But we had a student who became quite ill. And in the process of trying to overcome whatever was affecting him, and we still don't know exactly what caused that, Aaron Smiley, who was driving his bus, was pushed to take care of a student medically that really Aaron was not trained to do. But Aaron stopped his bus, now, in the middle of Needmore Road because there was nowhere to pull off. And he went back and he aided this student and got him into a position where the student would at least be physically safe for the moment. Now, Aaron didn't do that by himself. Is Vivian here tonight? Vivian, would you stand up? This is Vivian Parks. Vivian Parks is a high school student who was just riding on the bus. And when she saw that Aaron needed help, Vivian immediately went to his aid and took care of the student while Aaron could then go move the bus and call for help. After that, when there were students on the bus who were elementary and middle school and they needed support, Vivian became their mother hen and took them wherever they needed to be and actually comforted them. Vivian is a high school student, and yet she reached out and she became a hero along with Aaron Smiley. Now, is Miss King here this evening? Don't believe so. In the middle of all of this, a community member who I understand has medical training stopped and also rendered aid to the student and helped Aaron while they were waiting for the ambulance to come. Not long after that, I'm a Baptist preacher, can you tell? Lisa Sutton and Lee Hyatt, y'all stand up for me, please? I know you don't want to. Lisa Sutton and Lee Hyatt came in their own vehicle and also rendered aid to this student and to the situation. So if it wasn't for Lisa and Lee and Vivian and Aaron, we would be having a different conversation tonight about a young man who, by the way, came home yesterday. And I don't know, Mr. Kerr, where are you? Did he come to school today? Yes, sir. And he came to school today. So to you five, I also want to express my extreme appreciation. Vivian, I wish that when I was in high school, I was as good a person as you. Okay? I was not, and I honor you. And Aaron Smiley, my stars, you're our hero tonight, along with PD and everybody else. Thanks to all of you. Would you please help me honor these folks for taking care of that student? These are the kind of people that we have in Swain County. And I appreciate you, and I'm so proud to be part of you. And Vivian, my understanding is that you may be transferring to another school? Yes. No, you're not. I have denied the records and access, okay? Because we're going to keep you. Right?
I told her she could come back.
Anytime. We want you back in our school system. Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention tonight. Thank you very much.
This is the part where they can leave, right?
If they want, or they can stick around.
So now you guys can leave. Your own business, your call.
I don't either. It's getting dark already.
When I realized all this legislative change, every state can decide whether they want to follow it.
Yeah, I hate it.
I do too. Causes my rooster to crow way too early.
I don't have a rooster. It's a good thing. I don't know. The train whistles keeping me up waking me up in the morning.
I'm sure.
Ready?
Okay, let's go ahead then with discussion.
You know what, that's not on here. Yes, it is, it's down here.
Yes, down below.
Down below, okay, all right. Mr. McKinney, because of the way that our state legislature has determined that they want to keep track of school systems, 2 of our schools have been placed in an unfortunate position of having to do some extra tasks to prove that they're taking seriously the fact that perhaps test scores weren't where the legislature would like to see them. And I've said several times that I believe that this is a flawed system, and I am trying not to resent the fact that our staff are having to put these kind of things together. But nevertheless, it is the law, and we'll complete the process, and we will be better for it in the long run. But tonight, I would like for East and Swain Middle School to present their school improvement plans. And as I said earlier, I'm going to ask that if you all comfortable, that we approve those so that we can send those on to the state after this evening, okay? You have the opportunity to make recommendations, and I hope that you've had a chance to look at the plans that were sent to you earlier, a couple of weeks ago. So if Ms. Sutton, Amanda Sutton, and her team, I don't know how you're going to present this, Amanda, if you would come and you would present for us, please.
My team came to support, but thanks to Mr. Kerr, he said he thought the principal should present, so I'm going to present.
It's always my fault.
Somebody has to be the scapegoat.
You're welcome, Ms. Sutton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just have to tell you to begin with that the group on the back row and one on the next to the back row in orange to represent Native American, missing Native American. Yes, just before we even had our EVOS data back, we already had goals in mind. This summer we worked on the goals where we looked at end of year data and we knew where we needed to be. We knew where we were lacking, and we really didn't change a ton based on our EVOS data. So I have to commend these folks because they know what they're doing and they're working very hard at it. I'm just quickly going to go over this. I'm not going to tell everything in it, but East Elementary made over 90% overall growth last year, 82.7 in fact. Overall we have met growth. We met growth in math and we exceeded growth in reading. I don't know if you have seen EdNC's Map It, but you can change the demographics and the percentages and things like that. The current model right now is 80% achievement, 20% growth. If you change those, with achievement scores accounting for only 77%, so 3% off what we were, we would have been a C. Mm-hmm. If achievement scores, we're not even asking for 50-50, but if achievement scores were accounted for 36% and growth scores accounted for 64%, we would be a B school. Those are all things that are out of our control. So I'm not going to focus on those. What I want to focus on are our NC STAR goals and our SMART goals that we have chosen for this year. The first one, instructional teams develop standards-aligned units for instruction. Our data teams meet weekly. You may hear other schools refer to these as PLCs. We call them data teams because that's what we meet for. We go over data. We discuss standards, common assessments, alignment, and student progress. And teachers are all part of a shared document, and we document all of this digitally. We have a leadership team that meets once monthly. As you can see, the NC STAR team meets monthly, and then each of our grade level teams meet at least weekly. Sometimes some of our grade levels meet 2 and 3 times a week for collaborative planning, which comes to the next one. The school has established a team structure to maximize instructional planning. All of our teachers, for the first time that I know of in Swain County Schools history, our elementary teachers get 90 minutes of planning every day. And that was set up mainly for letters PD, but it has really benefited us so we could have this collaboration to look at data to see where we are and where we need to be going. Tyler and myself, we do walkthroughs for monitoring curriculum and classroom instruction regularly, and then we haven't had time to do as many this year as we would like because of the super observations, because the super observations do take quite a bit more time. For every certified staff member, it takes about 3 hours from start to finish, and we had a timeline that we had to finish those by through the state. So we haven't had as much time to do the walkthroughs as we had wanted, but when we do them, we provide quick feedback for teachers, and it's very timely feedback. During the summer, the school improvement team decided on our reading and our math goal, and it's basically the same. By the end of this school year, 75% of our students in iReady will be in Tier 1 and no more than 5% in Tier 3. So Tier 1 is at or above grade level. Tier 3 is 1 or more grade levels behind, so we want to have that less than 5% of our kids for both reading and math. And we chose to do iReady because there is about a 95% correlation between iReady final benchmark scores and our EOG scores last year for 3rd through 5th grade, so it was a really strong correlation. And we are focusing on reaching stretch growth. So iReady provides us with typical growth, which is a year's worth of growth. Stretch growth takes it farther, so that is our goal for every kid, that they make stretch growth. The rest of your packet, you're just going to find some historical data as far as growth indicators for the past 3 years. You will see the colored copies. These are where we met growth and where we did not meet growth. You will notice there were only 2. I say only 2. Those 2 are very important because I want to actually exceed growth in everything. But it was students with disabilities in 4th and 5th grade math. That's the only place we did not meet growth. And then the last packet that you have are samples of our data team agendas. We have a new one each week that's tailored to our needs, and it may be individual student needs, it may be individual grade level needs, or it may be the whole school needs. Do you guys have any questions?
Questions or thoughts, anyone?
I know a lot of, I hate to put it this way, but a lot of achievement in schools is tied in with region and poverty level. And I'm for a school improvement plan. I don't care if you're doing 90% exceeding, those are still good. Do you see any effect that from kids that maybe you have trouble getting to school?
Absolutely. Our attendance has been an issue this year. I thought it would get a little bit better this year than it was last year, and it seems to be worse actually to start the year off. Having 30 kids absent would be a lot in previous years. This year we're hovering around 40, 45 is kind of the norm. And I know with the flu and COVID and all the respiratory illnesses, but we're also seeing it in our staff because they have little ones too and they get sick themselves. So I'm very worried about meeting this growth and meeting the proficiency because we know we have to make growth in order to be proficient, but we have to be there too. Our kids have to be there. So.
Well, we saw this during the height of COVID. I'm glad you're looking at it the way you are. Mm-hmm. It's not an excuse, but it is a reality. Mm-hmm. And I think you ought to make this. I think you'll do it. That's good.
I don't have any doubt that you won't be doing this again. I don't have any doubt. I think I may have more confidence in you than you do. But when you look at their data and you see that, only a couple of areas didn't meet growth, I believe that East will meet this at the end of this year. And of course, that is the expectation. But that staff and Ms. Sutton are amazing. And I believe that they'll rise to the challenge on this. I'm going to go back and say it again, and I'll say it one more time after this. This process is unjust because they are not a lower-performing school, and neither is the middle school, in my opinion. So we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kerr, Swain Middle School, or your team. Can you believe that?
I always present these things.
He just played you. I'd be mad. Yes, I was. I'd be angry. No, paybacks are real.
So I'm Jennifer Edding. I teach 7th grade math at the middle school, and I feel like I do this every year, so I wanted to be a part of this. So we did not meet the growth that we needed to for this year, but we still have a lot of things that we feel like we should celebrate.
Yes.
And one of the biggest things that we feel really, really, really proud of is we achieved lighthouse status.
Mm-hmm.
And that is phenomenal. I did a little bit of research on it. First off, we started in 2014 as a Leader in Me school. Like, we started the whole process, and it was a long process. We made it through COVID, and we kept going through with it. But I looked this up, and there are only 688 lighthouse schools in the world, and we are one of them, which is a huge accomplishment. Because I know we talk about how many there are in North Carolina, but if you think about that worldwide, there are only 688, and we are one of them, which is phenomenal. We also really wanted to celebrate the fact that our PTO is incredibly involved in our school this year. We feel like we've got a great community involvement in our middle school. We had an incredible fall festival this year. We've never done that before, and we raised over $2,000 for our school to help with rewards and incentives for our kids. We had tons of students and families there. We had STEM projects going on and activities, and then there were carnival games, and it was, Mr. Sale was the one that said, he was like, it was so fun to see kids coming to the middle school after school to just hang out and have fun. And that was, I mean, it was a very positive thing. And the other thing that we're celebrating is that Tim got to be in the dunking booth, and the kids were really good at it. But yeah, we've got a lot of great stuff going on with our PTO. And then when I reached out to the staff and asked them what they wanted to celebrate, the thing that kept popping up was that this is our most normal year since COVID, and we started out without masks, and our kids are able to work together, and middle school is huge for socialization, and our kids are actually being able to socialize normally, which is great. So that's good stuff happening.
Mitch, you didn't dunk me in the Dunkin' booth, so I'm a little disappointed because I saw you there. So when we were talking this summer about our goals and what we want to do, this was, again, before we received any data or any information for the state. One of the things that we firmly believe in at the middle school is that you can't teach the student academic content without first teaching the student themselves about who they are and what they are and what it means to be a person in a way. And when we were going through some of the data from last year, we were looking at our teacher working condition survey, which I'm sure you guys have seen the results of, and we had a fantastic teacher working conditions survey, scoring above the state in most things, which is awesome. But our lowest spot was in one category, and that was bullying. And this was teachers reporting bullying of other students. And this was also coupled with another data point we get from the Leader in Me, which is the measurable results assessment. And we got a pretty low score in the overall culture of the school, but specifically on the student supportive environment measure on that. So we took those pieces of data and we said, well, what can we do? What does our goal need to be for our social and emotional well-being of the students? And so the goal itself says by June of 2023, Swain Middle School will improve the school culture for students as scored by the measurable results assessment. We're using that because we don't do teacher working conditions every year. Measurable results assessment from a 67 to at least an 80, specifically focusing on the student's supportive environment. And so what are we going to do? The first things we're going to do is we're going to really harp on anti-bullying lessons and focus how who we are and what we do affects others. So we're going to look for people to bring in. This is more going to be a spring push. We're going to talk about how can we report bullying and what do we need to report, because not everything's bullying, but there are instances that need to be reported. We're working on some mentoring through our leadership class. One of our other low scores was on trusting relationships with adults in the school. Students didn't feel necessarily that they had those relationships. And so through our leadership class, we are building kind of a mentoring program. We're starting that next week, actually, with our student-led conferences. Our goal is to establish community within the school. Research shows that not only community,
but belongingness in the school improves how individuals view school, view themselves, and view others. And so if we can create a sense of belongingness in our school, I think we'll be tackling a lot of things at once. We use our leadership class for check-ins, and again, leadership teachers or mentors. Non-leadership teachers, so that is like our librarian, Mr. Jameson, Mr. Kerr, Mr. Mack, we have a lot of people who don't teach leadership necessarily, are being strategically placed with students to do weekly check-ins. To just give that extra push to students who need just a little bit more support. Every teacher in the school has a leadership contact group, and that is their leadership class, and their job is to reach out 6 times a year and say, okay, how's your kid doing? This is what's happening at the school. These are some things I've noticed, to hopefully create that bond not just with the student, but with the parents. We have Maroon meetings every week. We would love for you guys to come out and to join us for a Maroon meeting. They're on Mondays at 8 a.m. And we do SEL lessons. We have Celebrate the Students. This morning we had a pie eating competition, and it was fantastic. But the kids really get to feel like they're part of something bigger than them. And we also do leadership notebooks. So this is kind of where they keep all this. So they can look back at the end of the year and say, oh my gosh, this is how much I've grown. This is who I was at the beginning of the year, and this is who I am now. And then they're going to get to share that with their parents and mentors and people like that. So our goal is to open up, to live out the opening part of our SMS mission statement, which is to have an inviting atmosphere. And we hope that these steps we're taking with this goal let us do that.
So I'm going to present our first piece of data, which is our reading goal. And our first goal is to increase reading proficiency from 47 to 60%, which is quite a lofty goal. We know this is a huge task, and this is not something we're going to just achieve in 1 year. This is going to be over several years, hopefully a couple of years. That's the goal. We are currently right now at the state average for proficiency in reading. So some action steps that we're going to take. First thing is we're going to be using iReady with Fidelity, 45 minutes per week, but the real goal is that students have to pass at least 1 lesson per week in reading. The second thing that we're going to do is dedicate time during the week, which is called flex time, to address student-specific needs, and that is actually built in within the school day, within the actual academic classes, reading and math. The third thing is that our professional learning community, or PLCs, are using the data from the assessments specifically to talk about the individual student needs. And students will also be reflecting on this data as well with the student leadership notebooks that Tim just mentioned. They're not just looking at the SEL part of it, but they're also looking at the math and the reading data part of that as well. And then the last thing is our literacy team. I'm our co-chair for the literacy team with Amber Gillum. Mr. Sell is part of our literacy team as well as an elective representative. And we're trying to provide staff-led trainings, things that we know that our staff needs based on the data. And then they are with what we call the SIM strategies through the University of Kansas. And those are ESSA-based strategies that show that students grow from those, and they're specifically reading strategies to add literacy support in all of their classes.
Okay, so Mr. Sale referenced that we met during the summertime. We came up with some goals to address some of the areas that we felt needed to be improved. And then we got our results back from the state. And when we got our results back from the state, we had to adjust some because we saw that our math scores were not where they needed to be. So I wanted to, Ms. Sutton referenced that I was going to speak. Well, I wanted to speak about this particular goal because I feel like this is a school-wide goal that I need to own to a degree, to a large degree, and give some context. So our goal is also to get to 60% in proficiency in math, ideally in the next year. That is a daunting task, but we have math teachers that are banding together and are determined to do everything they can to make that happen. They did not take learning this information very lightly. They were quite upset. They were quite disappointed, and the response was, what do we need to do to fix it? It's caused me to reflect greatly on what are the things we need to do and what has led us to this point. And one of the things is that we are in quite a transition period with our math department in the middle school. We had 3 new math teachers that came to our school either right before COVID or during COVID. So it has been a process of getting back to normalcy and then understanding where is the baseline for these teachers and what do we need to do to adjust. So quite honestly, the math scores were a wake-up call for many of us. Before COVID, we had exceeded growth in math. We met growth in math probably for forever. Reading had been our weakness. So we have adjusted our mindset on what we need to focus on. Some of our action steps, teachers are going to collaborate with our instructional coach, Heather Herron. They will watch examples of exemplary math instruction and discuss how elements can be implemented in their classroom. And for those of you that know, Heather Herron's father was Charles Payne, and Heather has a very strong knowledge in math, so she's very committed to sitting down with the teachers and helping talk through what are some strategies that they could implement in their class. I have targeted some differentiation PD. We are working with RISA and with NCAT to find some differentiation PD to help our math teachers build some or develop some extra tools that they can add to their toolbox to help them with differentiation strategies. Because I do think that is an area that doesn't necessarily come second nature to some, and they need an extra boost. And they understand that, and they are working. Ms. Lucas referenced the flex time. We have that for reading and math, and it is a dedicated time during the day where our students are getting targeted, skill-based, catch-up, essentially catch-up instruction to help with those holes that they've developed over the years because of COVID. We also, as Ms. Lucas referenced, are focusing on iReady. We are ensuring that it is being implemented with fidelity. That does mean partially ensuring 45 minutes of iReady instruction during a week and at least one lesson passed. There's some small tweaks that we've made this year. Something as simple as ensuring that every child has headphones. As we have become more familiar with the iReady program and have learned that so much of the instruction is auditory based, we've seen tremendous results with our students just by mandating, not giving them the option about wearing headphones. Seems like a simple adjustment. Ms. Sutton referenced stretch growth and typical growth. So iReady will tell you what a student's typical growth should be in a school year, which essentially means what a child needs to get expected growth. And then there's a stretch growth measure, which is if this child works really, really hard, they make this stretch growth, eventually they can catch up and be on grade level. So they referenced our student-led conferences that we're having next week. We have a script, that the teachers are going to be working on with the students. And one of those pieces is, what is your typical growth? What is your stretch growth? What are we going to be able to do? What are the strategies that we together can implement in class to help you get to that? So there's a lot I feel like that we are doing. Another piece is iReady curriculum. The central office, the county was gracious enough to purchase iReady curriculum in math and reading. What I have heard for years from some of our math teachers is they didn't have math curriculum that was updated with our standards. So for the first time in quite a while, we adopted some new curriculum for our math teachers that they are relying on and has eased some of their stress about coming up with lessons to teach the students. It is rigorous, but we believe it is pushing our students in an appropriate level. So just to wrap up, we feel we have accomplished many great things in the past year. Ms. Edding referenced lighthouse status. That was a big accomplishment. We are growing. We understand that we are always growing. And we know that there are areas that we need to grow more in, you know. We know that it's a team effort, and our school is committed to working together, to being our best, and we are committed to meeting expected growth in all areas. You know, Ms. Sutton referenced that she wants to exceed growth, and that's fantastic, and I would love to see us get to that point. But right now, we are committed to ensuring that we meet expected growth by the state by the end of this school year. These committed people behind me, they are amazing individuals who work their absolute tails off every day to ensure that our students are given their best. And I think that's just a symbol and a representation of our school as a whole bonding together and understanding that we've got to do better. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
I just have one. So after we approve the plans tonight, what happens after they get submitted to the state? I mean, are they approved at the state too?
The state, do you want me to answer that, or you want to answer that?
Go ahead, please do.
The state looks over them, and they have a month, right?
Technically, it says as quickly as they can.
Okay.
Okay, what I have heard is that they're not going to nitpick the plans that come from the schools or from the districts, that they're going to trust that the professionals know what they're doing, but they will go over them.
And I was told we were going to receive feedback from the state as well, and suggested changes by the end of, I believe by the end of December.
I think that probably is the timeline.
Mm-hmm. So,
I'll believe it when I see it.
well, yeah.
I will say I had the fortune, invitation to go up there and help with that leadership thing one day.
Yes, sir.
All day, really.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I saw your starting meeting that morning.
Mm-hmm.
I was very impressed. And the students, it's been a long time since I've been around a lot of students, but they were impressive. I was really impressed by their answers and how they handle themselves. And, you got a good school.
We have some great students and some great staff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts or questions? Thank you, Mr. Kerr.
Okay.
Thank you, team.
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you. There are basically 4 elements that we have been charged with to meet state requirements on this. The first one was before any of the schools began their school improvement planning, that I was to look at the abilities and the competencies of the principals and determine whether or not there should be any type of adjustment with the leadership at the school. And I will tell you, and I believe that you will agree with me, there is absolutely no need for any adjustment with any leadership at these schools. I believe that they are committed and they have taken this incredibly seriously, sometimes to the point of overworking themselves, which is not unusual for an administrator. But I believe that our principals and our building level administration is very strong in these schools and will meet these goals. The second requirement was that the schools completed a super evaluation process. Ms. Sutton spoke to that, and they have accomplished that already. The third is written notification to the parents, and if that's not completed, it's in the process of being completed right now. The fourth requirement is the development of these school improvement plans that have to come to you and then be approved, and once you approve them, if you do, we'll send them on to the state board for their approval. We've included another step for ourselves, and that is to ensure that our district is supporting these schools in their pursuit of their goals, but also all the schools. And we've noticed that there are some characteristics that are coming from all of the school improvement plans. The others you will hear about probably in December. There is a need for continued support for a multi-tier system of supports and the professional learning team process. That's how come we have extra days in our year this year for PLCs. We believe that process of the teachers having time, dedicated time to get together and look at their data and to make collaborative decisions is incredibly valuable, and we are committed to support that and to grow that as the schools say we need, or we see there might be another need. We are committed to making sure that our core curriculum is strong, And that core curriculum doesn't just mean reading and math and science. Core curriculum means anything that every student is getting so that they can be proficient in every class that they are in. That's core for us. And we will be and are looking at what is necessary in the core curriculum to make sure that every student has maximum potential and opportunity to grow. Mr. Kerr mentioned the iReady curriculum support in math. We will be looking at that type of curricular support in other areas as well, because for a number of years, our teachers have been expected to create their own materials and almost come up with their own curricular pacing and things like that. And while that's good, and an experienced teacher may be able to do that, whenever you bring a brand new teacher in, that puts an extra burden on them. And so we're looking at ways that we may be able to go back to some more traditional curricular supports and materials and support our teachers across the county that way. Teachers need the opportunity to have instruction as well, and to put all of that expectation on our building level administration might be unfair. And that's how come we have teacher learning coaches in almost every area except the high school, and we're looking at how we can do that as well. So we're going to strengthen our coaching culture by doing that, and maybe even moving into having lead teachers who are also coaching. They already do that some in mentoring, but the truth of the matter is our teachers are so committed and their time is so consumed with preparation and teaching, it's difficult for them sometimes to get into get with other teachers and help them grow. We're going to look at that. And we don't want to lose Leader in Me, because we really do believe that Leader in Me makes a difference. You've heard it mentioned several times tonight. When Leader in Me, a couple of years ago, when it was at one of its strongest points, there were people from other areas that were noticing a difference in our students. And it's not that we have lost that. It's just that we haven't been able to emphasize that over the past 2 or 3 years like we would like to. So that's going to become a focus again. And there are other things that our district is going to be doing, and you can see what I've written there for that as well. But I believe with all of these things that we're putting together that you're going to see changes in proficiency scores. Not that I want to dwell too much on that, because I believe that growing students is more important than necessarily hitting a benchmark. But I believe that we're going to do both with that, okay? Any thoughts or questions about any of that? Tonight I'm going to bring to you an instructional supplement plan that was placed in your packet. The state this year, as I mentioned, I believe last month, provided over $822,000 for certified instructional staff supplements. I think I told you last month that there's a formula that the state has used to determine how much funding comes to each school system, and they include in that the opportunity for taxing and also any supplements that are already being given. Swain County Schools was given $4,532 per staff member, per state-funded certified instructional staff member. After taking out retirement and Social Security, the remainder to be provided for everyone is about just over $622,000. There are 156 staff members who meet the criteria for this funding, 156 staff members. Again, I've got to go back and say, they are certified instructional staff that are assigned to a school. I didn't add that, okay? Those are some of the qualifications. We developed a process, and I shared this with you last time, but it's been revised just a little bit, where we are honoring the longevity of service for all of these staff members. That was a request that was given to me by staff at the end of last school year as we were thinking ahead towards this. Because of that, we've gone to a shares approach. I have given to you in your packet how that has been broken down. The minimum number of shares that will be applied to a teacher will bring in $3,774 in 2 installments. That will be for teachers who have 0 through 3 years, okay? The maximum amount that will be going is $4,500 in 2 installments, and that's for teachers who have, or instructional staff, who have 30 or more years of experience. And then there are varying amounts throughout all of the tiers. I've shared this with the Superintendent's Advisory Council, and they asked for a couple of changes, not necessarily in the sharing approach or in honoring people with more longevity, but they asked that we make our first installment available to the staff before Thanksgiving. And Ms. Treadway and her staff have keyed that in, and that is available and will be released as soon as possible. Correct, ma'am? And then the last installment was requested to come in May, right at the end of the school year, so our plan says on or before May the 30th, okay? This funding is not necessarily guaranteed because we know that there are a few guarantees with the legislature. They can change their mind during any session. However, this funding is supposed to be recurring according to what I have seen. Do you have any questions about this process or the supplement plan?
Just it's about time.
Yes, it is about time. I agree.
That's great.
If you are in favor of this, I'll be bringing it to you as an action item later this evening. As part of the report this evening, I just need for the public to know that our school board met with the commissioners last week to talk about a land purchase opportunity, and you as a board expressed a verbal agreement with the commissioners to move forward with that. There still needs to be an MOU that is drawn up so that we can not only have verbal but written agreement for full understanding. And if you instruct me to do that this evening, I will have our lawyers begin to work on that. Okay?
With something like that, once that's finalized, and hopefully before spring, when the next round comes, would putting that in on our package with trying to get that grant help, you think? Knowing that we have a designated area now ready?
I believe that it will, and I personally believe, Jerry, that the collaborative agreement, if we can include that MOU in there, that it will show the folks in DPI how serious we are about this. I believe that there are some other steps as far as that grant application that we probably need to pay close attention to, and we can talk about those at another time. Okay? Good. All right. Speaking of grants, Michelle Herron and Kevin Allman got together and wrote the very first health grant requesting money to support free and reduced or free lunches. Dogwood was a little hesitant to think about that because when one school system does it, another wants to. But they saw our argument that almost all of our elementary students were receiving free breakfast and lunch, and it was leaving just a few out. And while our county commissioners agreed to help us pay for that if we had to, the Dogwood organization has agreed to a $75,000 grant to ensure that that funding is coming in this year. We have not received the paperwork on that, but thanks to Ms. Herron and to Mr. Allman for their work on that. I only wish that we could expand that for all of our students. There is a push right now in the federal government to look at that, particularly as we see, Michelle, that more and more schools and more students are ending up with money owed because students are getting lunch and not paying for it. And so you have a debt service going on. And so if the opportunity comes for us to support that, we'll put together a letter because I believe that every student needs to eat. Okay? Mr. McKinney, that is all of the report that I have for tonight. You've seen the school improvement plans. Is there anything else?
That budget resolution, you going to explain it? Or?
No, I'm not.
I mean, it's up on you.
I didn't say it won't be explained.
Okay.
But Ms. Treadway is going to come to explain that because that's too
higher
complicated
authority.
for my mind.
That's a wise move. Somebody knows
I was gonna get out of it. I thought, that's a great idea. It's kind of like Mr. Kerr's idea. So. Mr. Kerr, you were gonna do this part, right? Trying to help you out, Ms. Sutton. So you have before you the budget resolution. This is the formal resolution. The resolution is broken down by fund, and then the way it gets approved is by the two-digit purpose code. Purpose codes are broken down between instructional services, system-wide services, ancillary services. However, I did do a PowerPoint to kind of go over some of the highlights from our budget this year. Could you just get me to the next slide? Oh. And then I'll be able to pick it up from there. To the left. Thank you. So the state budget bill was passed this year and signed into law July 11th of 2022. The state budget provided for salary increases for all public school employees in the fiscal year. Also raised the retirement rate to 24.5% and increased the health insurance premiums for the employer to $7,397 per employee per year. As far as salaries and bonuses, teachers and instructional support, they all received a step increase. Plus there was an increase to the overall salary schedule. An A00, which is a beginning teacher pay, is now at $37,000 per year. And the range of increases for each 10-month employed certified staff member was between $1,320 to $3,350 per year, which is a 2.5% to 7.2% increase. In the budget this year, they continue to give monthly supplements to school psychologists, speech pathologists, and audiologists, as well as school counselors. And then as Mr. Sale just explained, we also received the salary supplements again this year from the state. That was a total of about $822,000, and we have about $622 to distribute because we have to take into account the FICA taxes and the retirement. Assistant principals received a step increase, as well as the salary schedule increases that were consistent with the teacher schedule. Principals received a 4% increase, and central office received a 4% increase. The biggest increase was with our non-certified staff. As you remember, last year they received the 2.5% or the $13 minimum, and now the minimum has gone up to $15 per hour. So they received 4% or $15 per hour, whichever was the greatest. That increase was a 15.4% increase, though, in salaries. Bonuses, most of the bonuses were reinstituted this year. We did have performance bonuses last year for advanced placement classes and for CTE teachers. That continues, and they can receive up to $3,500 based on their 21-22 school year results. But the performance bonuses for grades 3rd through 8th grade math and reading were reinstated, and those will be based on the 21-22 results. Also, the state continued the small county and low wealth county sign-in bonuses, which the board approved last year to do the one-to-one match. So that's $500 locally and $500 that's matched from the state. Performance bonuses for principals were reinstated based on 21-22 results for growth. And then the salary supplements, once again, are also a part this year. Most of the bonuses will be paid in January. That's per the state guidelines. The sign-in bonuses have already been paid to new teachers. Those were paid in October. and principal bonuses were to be paid out in October. And then per the new agreement that you just hopefully will approve this tonight, the salary supplements will be paid in November and May. Benefits and retirement rates. So as I said before, the state increased the health insurance up to $7,397. That is just for the employer. The employee portion continued to be unchanged this year, and also for the upcoming calendar year will be unchanged. However, this increase, the $378 per employee, is about a $113,000 increase. But most of all, in the last 2 years, it's gone up $1,000, or and that has resulted in a $321,000 increase in the last 2 years just for health insurance. The retirement rate increased, as I said, to 24.5%. This is an increase in the overall budget of $249,000. And in the last 2 years, that's a $438,000 increase. State allotments this year. The school psychologist allotment, that was new last year, and we received 1.5 positions, so that continues this year. But the main thing about the school psychologist is starting in 22-23, we're now required, every school is required to employ at least one full-time psychologist, which we do have a full-time psychologist on staff. The other half position we're able to use and convert to dollars and contract some psychologists. PRC 039, which is our safety grant funding, the state increased that funding $32 million. That's non-recurring funding, but that was for some grants that could be applied for, which Swain did apply for and received $349,731. Part of that is to continue the SROs that we employ, that we contract with the county, but also the biggest portion of that will be for some safety improvements. The state set aside $32 million in fuel reserves for the entire state. That'll be a pot of money that can be applied for later on in the year for any increases in fuel cost. And then instructional supply funds, they increased overall $1.9 million throughout the state. The biggest thing about the state allotments, though, that I want to point out this year is that there's no hold harmless for ADM, which is average daily membership. Since COVID, for the last 2 years, we've had been held harmless. So if our average daily membership went down, our allotments did not decrease. That has went away, and we're now back to the normal application of funding formulas and the average daily membership calculations. So what that means for us, this year, right now, month 1 for the 22-23 school year, we're at 1,811 students. Our allotted ADM was based on 1,837. What the state does is they'll base it on that estimate, and then after month 2, they'll take the best of months 1 and 2, and they'll come up with a final ADM, and then they'll adjust our allotments. But what's happened, though, is 1920, our average daily membership was estimated at 1,960. So that has been held harmless since then. So that what that really means for us is that we've had a reduction of 100 students, which has affected our allotments. So teacher position allotments were decreased by 4.68 positions. This equates to a reduction of $263,500. That's just for a beginning teacher. That's not even doesn't even take into account if we have, which we usually keep our higher paid teachers on the teacher allotments. Dollar allotment funding only increased 2.6% over last year. However, our salaries and fringes increased more than 15%. Bottom line is our dollar allotments are not keeping pace with the mandated increases. The state is mandating these increases, but yet we're not receiving the funding to keep up with that. Our largest dollar allotment, which is small county supplemental funds, that's $1.6 million. That is where we pay a lot of our staff, like our support staff, because being a small county, we just don't have the local funding. So we've used that primarily for salaries and fringes. So that pot of money has not increased in 10 years. So each year, as you're getting, once again, the increases in salaries and increases in fringes, some of the dollar allotments increase. However, this one doesn't increase. So we're seeing the ability for us to use that funding for positions just shrinking. So basically, bottom line this year is that we've had to add 4.3 teachers to our local funding, 3 teacher assistants, and 1.63 custodial positions to local funding. Federal COVID allotments, I just want to give you an update on that. We have received 33 new federal grant since the start of COVID. The total funding that we've received is $6,958,508. We have spent to date $3,922,000, and we have remaining at about $3 million. We have $387,000 that will expire at the end of September, and $2.6 million that will expire September of 2024. Those we do have plans for. Those are factored into the budget. The majority of the $2.6 million will be for the capital improvements, the HVAC. So for our 22-23 budget, the overall proposed budget is $31,577,717. As compared to last year, our actual expenditures were $29,397,000. That's an increase of $2,180,000. So the increase of 1% of salaries here is not really reflective of the changes. And this is because even though the budget gets passed in July, we still haven't received all of our allotments. Mainly, we still have state allotments coming in, but mainly it's federal allotments that are always lagging. And one of our biggest pieces of our federal funding that we've not yet gotten approval back from is our 21st Century and our EC programs. They just got approved today, so I didn't get to incorporate that into our budget. But once all those are approved, you'll be able to tell the real effect of the changes in the salaries and the fringes. Let's see. This will just give you a breakdown of the overall budget by expenditure type. And as you can see from here, of the total budget, 50% is salaries. But the other part of that is 23% are fringes. So for every dollar of salary, 50% of that is paid out in fringes between FICA, retirement, and health insurance. Services is 9%, supplies 9%, capital 8%, and transfers are 1%. The overall budget by fund, 54% of it is from our state allotments, 17% from federal, 5% local, 2% for capital outlay, 7% child nutrition, and 15% special revenue, which is any additional grant money that we receive outside of federal or state allotments, and the majority of that also is our impact aid. State Public School Fund, the total budget this year is $17,147,766. That's, once again, 54% of the overall budget. And that has about 238 full-time equivalents or employees. Once again, in state public school fund, because we try to put most of our salaries into the state public school fund. So 65% of the state public school fund is paid in salaries and 30% in fringes. So 95% of our state funding goes directly to salaries and fringes. Our local current expense, that is where the county funding goes, and that is primarily for maintenance and also for our for utilities. And when I say maintenance, that's just maintenance staff, not actual maintenance of our buildings, just the staff. So that is $1,484,000, about 5% of the overall budget, and we have 15 employees paid out of that, 3 of which are our new employees for our small projects, which is actually being funded from Article 46, which is about $170,000. And then we also have 4 reading TA positions, which the county is funding at $160,000. So this one you'll see primarily salaries and services, because we do pay all of our utilities out of here. The biggest portion here is salaries, but then also our services, which we don't have enough money to pay all of our services out of here, so we pay some of that out of Fund 8. Federal fund budget, as of right now, the total is $5,315,978. You'll be seeing that increase at our next board meeting when I bring forth some amendments for our budgets that just got approved. That's 17% of the overall budget, and there's 26 full-time equivalents paid from our federal funding. The majority of this budget is right now showing as capital outlay because of the ESSER funding that we still have $1.7 million remaining to spend just for capital. But then also about 46% is for salaries and fringes. Fund 4 is our capital budget. This is primarily just for any capital needs, building maintenance, large projects. That's $526,856 and 2% of the overall budget. Child nutrition, the total budget is $2,179,000, or 7% of the overall budget, and they employ almost 23 full-time equivalents. Once again, the majority of here will be supplies, just because of food costs, which has gone up dramatically. And then also the increase in salaries and fringes has really taken effect on the child nutrition, because once again, the reimbursements from the federal government is not keeping pace with what the state mandates are. So I've got a breakdown of right now what we project. This is a difficult year because it's with COVID. There's really not, we have to go back 3 years to kind of try to get a gauge as to where, we are. But in the meantime, we've had such increases in the salaries and fringes and the supply cost. But right now we are anticipating about $1.2 million in federal reimbursements, and $565,000 in local funding, which really comes from our paid the paid portion of our meals. But the main thing I want to point out here is, as of right now, based on our budget, and we've really tried to get things as lean as possible, but we're still looking at having to use $317,000 in fund balance to try to make that budget balanced. Hopefully our reimbursements will be more than what we anticipate, but as of right now, we're budgeting to spend $317,000 basically from our savings. Special revenue, which is Fund 8, it's $4,900,000, 15% of our overall budget, and we'll be employing 33 full-time equivalents from that funding. About 49% is for salaries and fringes, But here, since we pay the majority of our salaries and fringes from the state public school fund, then this is where we wind up paying the majority of our instructional supplies and other services, insurance, contracts, leases that we have. And right now, for our Fund 8, state grants, we're anticipating $480,000. Additional federal funding, $480,000. Budgeting $2.5 million in the impact aid funds. Right now, I've left that pretty neutral compared to the prior year, just because we're unsure as to the number of students that will qualify for our impact aid funding. They have, approved some increases to impact aid funding, but until we can see what our true allotment's going to be, I kept that neutral. Indian Ed, $97,000. Other local sources, $39,000. Unrestricted local funding of $151,000, and indirect cost of $125,000. The biggest thing to draw your attention to here, though, is what we anticipate having to draw out of fund balance just to balance our budget this year, and that's over $1 million. Majority of that is coming from what we're having to take off of the state public school fund, because we do not have the funding to cover the mandates.
That's right. Fringe benefits and other
Pay increases.
Pay increases. It seems that the legislature's goal is to expect local government to cover more. And that's what we're seeing now.
So we'll just have to look at tacking that on next year for our allotment from the county.
Well, that would be an approach, yes. And I don't want to sit here, Mitch, and just defend local government all the time. They have been very supportive of us in a lot of different ways. But it's getting to a point where we're going to have a push there. The other side of that is Tommy and I are going to enter into looking at every single position in our school system to see how we can operate more efficiently and more effectively. And if there's a place where we can combine positions, we'll do that. And at the same time, I cannot take money out of the classroom. We'll have to look in other places everywhere that we can. But the kids deserve the lion's share, and that's what we're going to do. But again, it's unfunded mandates that are hurting us, mostly in this.
Because even, when we have legislated increases, and you see that 17% of our other funding is from federal funding, it does not take into account those increases either. So once again, those are shrinking as far as how many full-time equivalents we can put into those particular funds.
We've shifted a significant amount of funding out of our local expectations and into ESSER for the past couple of years, and that's going to come to a screeching halt in 2024. And we're already looking at, so do we really need this or not? And making some very difficult decisions without hurting people. So we'll keep coming back to that.
Do y'all have any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Steve.
And I think it's important for everyone here, whoever is listening, to recognize that Swain County is not the only school system that's fighting this battle. If you go to any superintendent, any school board, you're going to hear some of the same stories. All of us are struggling in different ways right now. Any questions or thoughts?
Too many thoughts to absorb on it.
Yeah, it is a lot. I know it's a lot.
What is the recommended fund balance from our accountants?
8% of your total expenditures. I mean, we've exceeded that in the past.
Right.
Far exceeded it.
I know.
We just can't maintain this.
And we've really not had to. Because of your I'm not gonna call it magic, but because that'd make it sound like you're doing something illegal and you're not. But Stephanie, it works with us so well to help us at the end of the year be able to not have to take fund balance, although we always project some. This is the largest one that I've seen as superintendent. I suspect that we'll be able to see a reduction in that. That's my goal. That's my expectation.
Yeah, her job is, I don't know if the public realize how, it is tremendously complicated.
It is.
I mean, she's getting money flowing in from all different, it's just, I don't see how she does it.
And I don't think that the public understands, and this is not to their discredit or anyone else, but whenever we receive funding from different sources, very often it is dedicated to a particular item and we can't just take money from one place and put it in another. You know, some people think that you can just take money out of salaries and do something else. You can't. It's complicated, and her team is amazing. Stephanie runs a good ship. Her group is good.
We're fortunate.
And if we're not careful, Tyler Munis is going to hire her away from us. That's an inside joke, sorry. That takes us through all of the discussion items. We've done really well, if you think, Mr. McKinney, to cover everything that we've covered.
A lot to absorb, yeah. Anybody signed up? No public comment? All right, we're gonna go in closed session and come back, and then the short part takes place. We don't have much left after this, so.
All right.
If I have a motion to go into closed session.
Move the Swain County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged, confidential, not a public record under North Carolina General Statute 143.318.11A1.
Second. All in favor, by show of hands. Be back in a moment. All right, we're back in session. Mr. Sale, personnel, please.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education accept the resignation of Deborah Taylor as assistant girls basketball coach for Swain Middle School effective October 31st, 2022.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education employ Josh Kirkland as assistant boys basketball coach for Swain Middle School.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the October 17, 2022 open and closed session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor by show of hands?
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the 2022-2023 budget resolution as presented by Ms. Treadway.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? Any further discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
As I stated at the beginning, a couple of additions. I recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve the school improvement plans for Swain East Elementary and Swain Middle School for this school year.
Motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion carried.
I have had a request to dismiss students early on December the 16th as a half a day. If you would approve that adjustment to the calendar, that would be a dismissal for them at 11 o'clock. A couple of good reasons, in my opinion, for that is it allows us to get cleaned up from the day before everybody goes home, and it also allows our bus drivers to get in a little earlier that day. We would lose a little bit of instructional time if staff want to leave early. They'll need to take leave or do something appropriate with that. But we'll look at how that happens as well. Okay?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion of it? All right, all in favor by show of hands? Motion carried.
You'll see calendar of events there. Some of those have already passed. If I am not mistaken, your next meeting is December the 12th, and we will be welcoming 2 new board members on that evening. Mr. Taylor will be with us then, and Ms. Loftus will be as well. However, we will be minus a couple. And so in a few minutes, I think it would do us well to see if we can make her cry. That's my goal. That's not on here, is it? Thank you. There's one more action item, and I don't know why it's not on here. I apologize. I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the teacher supplement plan for the 2022-23 school year as presented to you. Thank you, Stephanie.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
Okay.
Is that all the action?
That's it. We have a transfer. You see who that is.
All right.
Other than that, we can close out.
Well, before we close out, we got a sad moment. Ms. Kim Carpenter's been with us 8 years, and I can say without hesitation, students' lives have improved, because that's all she's been about. It's actually, I mean, I know her well. I won't go far back, how far back I know her well. I can still see her walking off from band practice. I used to take school, come down and practice softball. And that was back in, I can't tell you the date.
Yeah.
I'm old, but she's young, so, but I'm gonna miss her. It's just been a pleasure to have her on board. And, I'm gonna miss her, and I'm gonna envy her, because she's gonna be sitting at home watching something she enjoys, while we're up here looking at each other. But, I'm gonna miss you.
I miss you too.
Congratulations. I know it's going to be your thought process, a lot of your knowledge and your skill that you put into this for so long, and doing and representing the board previously. It is going to be missed. It's a great attribute to be able to discuss these kind of things and be able to bounce this kind of stuff off of you. Enjoy your time. I know it was short-lived for Mitch and I, but I think we know you outside of this, and hopefully we'll continue to do that friendship outside of this as well. So congratulations.
Yes, congratulations as well, and your your discipline and your character and integrity are exemplary, and it was an honor to get to work with you. It was an honor to have a lady's perspective, a mother's perspective on this panel. And I think I can speak for all 5 of us. I can honestly say it's, I've been on several boards, not of this magnitude, but this has been one of the best groups that I've worked with. And you be right there in the forefront because it was so good. And appreciate the fact don't be a stranger, and I know you won't be because you may be having to rely on your knowledge maybe in the future. But I appreciate everything you meant to the board.
Thank you.
And this community.
You know, a lot of times, Kim, that organizations will give a plaque. And instead, we've decided to give you something to put your pictures on.
And I love it so much.
Or your plants. That'll be a little more
Lots
usable
of
than just a
pictures.
plaque on the wall.
It's perfect. Thank
So
you.
enjoy that, and thank you for all that
That's amazing.
you've meant to our school system and our students. Thank you for helping me learn that it's okay if we don't always agree, that we can still walk away and we can be friends.
Absolutely.
That's valuable. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you all. If I can I wrote something down just because I don't know if I can get through it, but if y'all will indulge me for just a moment, I just have a few things I would like to say. And I may have to get somebody to read it for me if I can't get them. But I just have nothing but thanks and appreciation for everybody here and the county as a whole for allowing me to serve as a board member for the past 8 years. It's been I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to serve a school system that served me and one I grew up in and where I raised my kids in, and it's been truly an honor of a lifetime. To watch kids learn and prosper and grow into individuals that they're made to be. And I don't see it as much as you guys do in the classroom and as administrators, but seeing it and knowing it's happening is an amazing thing. And to watch, as we have tonight, I'm in awe of all these tireless champions who work in our classrooms every single day, and the administrators who oversee that process for our children. It's been amazing to watch and learn from this perspective, and I appreciate all that. It's not always been easy and stress-free, particularly during the pandemic, but I can say that all the board members that I've served with and administrators, and that includes Melly Burns and our beloved Lambert Wilson, and all those who are sitting here now, that as well as Mark Sale, Sam Batillo, no one's ever wavered in doing what was right, best and right for the kids of Swain County, and I firmly believe that. You know, we've not always agreed, which is fine and part of the process, and we've not always made everyone happy or even accepting of the decisions we've made, but never once did partisan politics play a part or a role in any of our decisions. We're all from different political backgrounds here and beliefs and thought processes, but I can say the only agenda coming from this board has been what we believe to be in the best interest of the students in our county, and putting that above anything else. And, you know, making sure that the rights of all students are protected while providing them with the best education possible and keeping them safe during the pandemic, so that they can leave our system with a path forward for work or future employment, whatever they decide to do, and to live their great lives wherever that is and whatever that means to each individual student. And I think that this board and other members of the board that I've worked with, we've supported our system's belief that every student and every child is important and deserves every education and social opportunity, and also the respect and love to know that someone's in their corner. And I know that work will continue. And I will miss being here, and I will miss you all. And it's a system I love and always will. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. We are adjourned.